Good evening. Mr. Peter Varghese, AO, Chancellor, Professor Lydia Kavanagh, President of the Academic Board, esteemed panel members, friends and donors of UQ, UQ colleagues and students, and distinguished guests. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to the University of Queensland School of Education's 80th birthday celebration on the theme Bridging Past and Future, 80 Years of Impact and Innovation. I'm Professor Robin Shields, and it's my great pleasure and honour to be the head of the School of Education. To begin this evening's proceedings, I would like to invite Professor and Auntie Denise Proud to deliver an acknowledgement of country. Auntie Denise is a proud Aboriginal woman who was born in Cherbourg on Waka Waka country. She has connections to Koa and Kuku-Yalanji people. Her career in education began at the age of 16 when she started the first kindergarten in Cherbourg, and she has gone on to a series of impressive accomplishments, including work in correctional services, a significant body of research, publications, and grants, leadership roles in early childhood Australia and Reconciliation Queensland, an honorary doctorate at QUT, and in 2025, Auntie Denise was made honorary professor at the University of Queensland. Auntie Denise is a world traveller, a global citizen, and a very generous contributor to the School of Education. I invite you to read her full biography in your programs. Welcome, Auntie.
Thanks, Robin. Gee, I don't know if I can talk after that. Hello, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to speak in your territory. My name's Denise Chambers Proud, born on Waka Waka, and a very proud Aboriginal woman. I don't use the term Indigenous, I don't like it, but that's a lecture in itself. So, Robin, thank you for inviting me here. It's an honour to be invited here for the 80th anniversary of the School of Education at the University of Queensland. Firstly, I pay my respects, of course, to the ancestors of this land, the people, my elders especially, that have gone before me. Their struggling and survival through hardship. By them imparting knowledge and wisdom, I've been brought to this place today. I also pay homage to your ancestors, because without them, where would you be? They paved the way for us, and we need to respect our elders and the people who impart that knowledge for us to keep going. Please, all of us here, imagine generations of ancestors who have brought you to this point, and they've brought us together to this place and time by their existence and their struggles. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this country, and to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people sitting in this audience, thank you. And Fred from Waka Waka, where I was born, I pay my respects, because without the Waka Waka people giving me my knowledge and teaching me how to survive, I will never ever forget. We acknowledge our first peoples of this country, the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander peoples. They're the first peoples of this land. And I just want people to know that we're Australians. We are not the other. We are not put in the too hard basket. We're a part of this country, and we like you to walk with us, which is what we want to do. We know we are still uncovering the deep history, and some would say conveniently forgotten truths of this land. We need to know our history for us to move forward together. And I think as educators, we impart that knowledge here, and hopefully our students and our people feel comfortable in your lectures, in your surroundings, in this place. It's a beautiful university. I want to thank the head of school, Professor Robin Shields. Thank you, Robin, for your innovative and respectful initiations through innovating and starting things, and your relationship with us. It's the relationships we build. The way the educators in the School of Education have built up a trustful relationship with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And to Professor Marnie Shea, thank you, Marnie, for your leadership and the respect that you treat our people when they walk into this university. It's very important, the relationships we have, and build on those relationships. We have an advisory committee that was started by Robin and Marnie, thank you so much. Kate, Sue, who's here, thank you all for being a part of getting that advisory committee up and running. The Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander committee that Fred is on too. I mean, that's a first. I know we started one at Sunshine Coast Uni, but I think it's good that other universities look at how it's run at this university. I think we do it well, and that's a credit to the University of Queensland. The past is not long ago, but we tend to forget it. The School of Education was established in 1945. Because we are interested in education, I'd like to remind everyone of the past history of education in Queensland. In the wider population, most children were attending school to grade 10 since 1912. However, on Queensland Aboriginal settlements, education beyond grade 3 wasn't provided until 1950, and I was born in the 50s. And even the subjects I did at school were separated into, I wasn't allowed to do science, which I wanted to do. So I know all of you in this room are making a difference, and I just want to thank you all and applaud you all too for your leadership. And to Professor Bob Lingard here too, thank you so much for your leadership and the relationship that you've had with our people for so many years. Grade 12 only became available in Queensland Aboriginal settlements during the 1970s and the 1980s. The records that were kept on us was up till 1980s. Mine go up to 1981. I want to honour the memory of Emeritus Professor Betty Watts. She was at this university. Some of you may know of her, and I'm sure you do. From starting as a primary teacher at the age of 17, she went on to become a highly respected academic. Chair of the Board of Queensland College of Teachers, and Emeritus Professor in Education at this university. She was the founding editor of the journal known today as the Australian Journal of Indigenous Education. I was one of her research subjects when she came to Cherbourg in the 60s. I visited her often here on this campus. She would have me sitting at her office, where not many Aboriginal people at that time were able to even enter into or mix with other students. She had a strong influence on me and made me believe I could do something with my life. If you have someone believing in you, it makes a difference. And I am in debt to her. There are many pressures in our lives, so many priorities and things to think about. But as you walk around this campus, which is a beautiful campus, by the way, and elsewhere on this land, spend a moment to acknowledge and respect those who walk this country before us. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, Auntie Denise. I think I speak for all of us when I say that acknowledgement is full of inspiration, so much we can learn from, so much authenticity there. Reflecting that we're celebrating 80 years of history here tonight, I'm also in awe that these lands have been places of teaching and learning for more than 60,000 years. And I pay my respects also to the traditional owners of these lands. I extend those respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues, guests, and students who are with us this evening. And I would like to acknowledge Mayor Bruce Simpson from Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council, who's just arrived. Welcome, Mayor Bruce. No problem, great to have you here. So I would now like to welcome the University of Queensland Chancellor, Mr. Peter Varghese AO, to deliver a welcome address. Welcome, Chancellor.
Well, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Let me use this.
All right, sorry.
It's more reliable, I think.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, let me add my welcome to all of you and to thank you for joining us here this evening for what is a very important celebration, the 80th anniversary of the School of Education. Can I say to Auntie Denise, proud thank you for a most gracious welcome to country, and thank you for your words about the work of the school and the relationship between the school and Aboriginal communities. And thank you for extending your hand to all of us to, as you put it, walk together. You've had a distinguished association with the School of Education, and for that we are truly grateful, and I do want to acknowledge it. Let me also acknowledge Councillor Bruce Simpson, the Mayor of Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council. It's very good to have you here this evening. I want to also recognise our panellists this evening, from whom you'll be hearing shortly, and to all the members of the UQ family who are here, staff and students and friends. A very warm welcome to you. Universities have three fundamental purposes. They exist to teach, they exist to do research, and they exist, very importantly, to enrich the society in which they are based. And by those three measures, the School of Education over its 80 years has made an outstanding contribution in each area. It's a distinguished history. This university started education courses before the School of Education existed, way back in 1937, when the university inhabited rather vice-regal premises, the old government house building in George Street. And over the years, from 1945, when the school or the department was established, through to today, it may have gone through many different incarnations and many different titles, but its contribution in those three areas has remained remarkably consistent. In 1945, when the School of Education was established, it was a period where everyone was focusing on life after the Second World War. So it was an opportunity to think a bit bigger than maybe we as a community are accustomed to doing, and to start planning for a post-war world. And understandably, the initial focus of the Department of Education, as it was then, was on teaching, on training the teachers that we knew Queensland will need for the post-war period. And that teacher focus has, of course, never left the School of Education, and I'd like to think that it has grown in depth, and it has grown in the way in which it sees the role of teachers in a community. I think the next phase of the School of Education was as a research establishment. And I think it has established an international reputation as a school of research. Its very first professor was, of course, Sir Fred Chanel, who went on to become Vice-Chancellor, and whose association with this university has been extremely close. And Sir Fred Chanel was a globally recognised researcher in the field of education, and he set the foundations for the School of Education becoming a powerhouse in research. And whether it was the Centre for the Science of Learning Research or the Centre of Excellence for Children and Families, UQ's School of Education has always sought to be a contributor to our deeper understanding of education and society. This has also been a school with a strong international dimension, particularly in terms of its connections in our Indo-Pacific region, and I'm pleased to see that that continues to be a feature of the work that the school does, as it is a feature of the university more generally, because we do try and produce graduates who are anchored in their community, but also have a global perspective on the challenges that we all face. I have a very personal reason for wanting to celebrate this 80th anniversary, because my father taught at the University of Queensland School of Education, and if it were not for the offer that Fred Chanel made to my father to join the department, we as a family would not have stayed in Australia. So this is going back to 1965, a very different Australia. I'm sure many of you would recognize just how different it was. And it was that offer of employment to the University of Queensland which enabled our family, and I'm one of 9 children, so it's not an insubstantial family, to stay in Australia, to make a life in Australia and to enjoy the benefits of living in a great country. Whatever flaws and struggles we have had as a nation, and they have been many, and some of them have been very deep, it has also been a country that's been very kind to our family, and I often reflect on the fact that if it was not for the University of Queensland, and if it were not for the School of Education in Queensland, we as a family would have had a very different life. So I do want to acknowledge the 80 years of achievement that we are marking today. And I think the Queensland commitment, which the university has formally made more recently, is a wonderful example of how the School of Education has sought to contribute to the community around it. A commitment which is pitched particularly at opening up our doors more wide to members of the Aboriginal community, to people from regional Australia, and for those from a more disadvantaged socio-economic background. And I think that the spirit of the School of Education has been encapsulated in the Queensland commitment. So, Robin, to you and to all of the members of the school and all of those people who are here this evening who have some connection to the school one way or another, happy 80th anniversary. I don't think I'll be around for the next 80th or the 160th anniversary, but you should be very proud of what you have achieved, and I'm sure there's very much more that you will continue to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor, for reminding us of our history, for walking us through it, for signalling what our strengths have been throughout that time, and also for sharing your own connections to the school. I think that speaks to that this is a room full of many different connections, and it's going to be wonderful to celebrate those and explore them further tonight. So thank you for opening our proceedings tonight. I'm still quite new in the School of Education. I've been here just over 2 years. So to prepare opening remarks tonight, I asked some more experienced colleagues, those who know the school the best, who've known it longest, for some advice. I asked them how they describe it. And those who started their careers here as students talk about the thrill of learning from outstanding scholars in the field and how these scholars instilled within them a passion for education and excitement for teaching, and how that launched a career that ultimately led them to be the outstanding scholars who are preparing the next generation of educators as they are today. They also said the school is a place that is a caring environment dedicated to nurturing the well-being and academic growth of students and staff alike. They said it's known for the rigor of its research, but also its connections to practice, its focus on equity and inclusion, its message of hope, and its commitment to create change. I asked the same question of our newest colleagues. They said it's a welcoming environment, it's inclusive, and above all, it's somewhere where they can turn to colleagues for support. These reflections mirror my own experiences since starting at UQ, and they give us a sense of its true character. At the time of its founding in 1945, many considered children with different needs or diverse abilities to be unworthy of the time and the attention required for a high-quality education. But in contrast, the work of Fred and Eleanor Chanel saw these children as capable and enthusiastic learners, and they developed an impressive body of research in that area. Since then, our approach to inclusivity, equity, and diversity have grown and improved as integral components of our world-leading research. Today, we have over 50 staff and affiliates whose research strengths include the teaching profession, maths education, technology and learning, the science of learning, Indigenous education, youth vulnerabilities, disability in education, positive behavior support, global change, education policy, and other topics at the forefront of research and practice. Their work attracts millions in funding from research councils, from governments, from schools, and other educational organizations. And importantly, our work engages and centers the voices of young people and educators. Our work has been and remains highly international. 39% of our publications involve international collaboration, and nearly half of our doctoral students have come from outside of Australia to conduct their research here. And this contributes so much vitality and inspiration to the work that we do. And our work has global impact. For example, the Down Syndrome Research Programme commenced in 1978 and is known throughout the world as the longest running longitudinal study of people with Down syndrome. Its substantial contributions were recognized in the 2024 World Down Syndrome Congress in Brisbane. But nowhere is our research excellence more evident than in our work in Indigenous education. Now, as Auntie Denise reminds us, throughout much of the 80 years of history we are celebrating tonight, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were excluded from education in schools and universities, like UQ. But we were lucky to have courageous trailblazers with the vision and the drive to create change. And we're lucky to have some of them here this evening. Today, our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander colleagues undertake research in partnership with Indigenous communities. They advise federal, state, and local government, and they're regularly featured in the media. Oops, on the wrong page there. Our community of Indigenous postgraduate researchers, SOE Deadly, is thriving in producing work of the highest quality under the guidance of experts. Their excellence is clear for all to see. Its members have won the AARE, that's the Australian Association for Research and Education's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Postgraduate Student Research Award for all of the past 3 years consecutively. Looking to the future, we will need to draw upon our collective learning over the past 80 years to address the challenges we face. For example, UNESCO estimates the world is facing a shortage of 44 million teachers by the year 2030. There are still many students for whom education does not provide a full opportunity to flourish, and the crises of global climate change and conflict point to a need to focus our education on relationships to one another and to country. In facing these challenges, our school is well positioned to create positive change, mainly because our first 80 years provide a strong footing for our work. Thank you to everyone here tonight to help to bring us to where we are today. We're positioned to build a bridge to a better future, and I hope to walk with all of you on that journey. I would now like to invite our panel to the stage. Come on up. And to chair and moderate the panel, I would like to welcome and introduce my colleague, Deputy Head of School, and listen carefully, Professor Marnie Shea.
Hi everyone. I have the pleasure of chairing this esteemed panel this evening, and I'd like to introduce the panellists. We're a bit out of order, so let me just calibrate. Aisha Saleh is in her third semester of the Master of Educational Studies, specialising in guidance, counselling and careers. Aisha also serves as a student representative for the UQ Faculty of Humanities, Arts and Social Sciences, where she actively contributes to enhancing the student experience and fostering a supportive academic environment. So, thank you and welcome. I don't know if this fella needs any introduction, but yeah, thank you and welcome to Emeritus Professor Bob Lingard. You're an eminent sociologist of education, and to put it succinctly, you've held professorships at UQ, and you're very well known to our school and to the University of Queensland. Bob, you're a fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences in Australia and in the UK. You first worked at UQ in 1973, which is amazing, as a research assistant to Professor Betty Watts, who we heard about this evening. So thank you, Bob. Dr. John Davis, an absolutely amazing researcher and alumni of the School of Education. Dr. Davis went to complete his PhD on the community Darathunga model. Did I get that right, JD? Darathunga. Yeah, at QUT. He has held many significant leadership and educational roles, as well as lectureships at the University of Queensland and JCU, as well as advising government on curriculum. So welcome, John, and thanks. Amy Thompson is a proud Mandindangi woman, born and raised in Brisbane. Amy is approaching the completion of her PhD in those late stages, and your PhD is looking at the principles of self-determination and co-design in embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives in English education, and I know that because I supervise Amy. So yeah, look, absolutely amazing panel, and we will kick off with Dr. Davis for the first question. So as an alumni, you've gone on to a successful career bridging research and significant roles in educational leadership. How do you see this link, and how should the School of Education use research to prepare leaders?
Thanks, Marnie. Just throw us straight in there. Appreciate it. I reflected on this around our time at UQ, and I guess I saw it when we sat circles here when Arnie gave our lovely acknowledgement. And first thing I wanted to shout out was the code switch. I was talking to Fredo Cobbo, and when I first came in here, about just the way we've got to mediate the mainstream spaces and how you feel more safe and culturally grounded. So the code switching is an important part of that. So it's no use being and that must have been an early bio, so I didn't get other longer one to you, Robin. Nah. The translation piece is really important, that we're able to ground ourselves with our community, so you can't go and do your masters at UQ or your PhD, or I did my postgrad dip ed here. I was part of one of those last courses who did that for their high school. You can't do that if you're not able to sit and translate with community, so that's an essential part, is being balanced and being able to share those gifts, yeah. So that's been a big part of the work and the flows. Does that answer part of the question?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks, John. We're going to move to Aisha now. As an international student whose second language is English, what were your experiences studying with the school?
For me, I remember my first time learning at UQ, and it was actually one of the most daunting experiences I've had at that time, because it was the first time I had to fully use English in my learning, which is very surprising to me because I'm from Indonesia, and in Indonesia I attended an international school, so I was actually quite familiar and comfortable in learning in English, but I realized that in Indonesia, all of my classmates and my teachers they understand both Indonesian and English. So I've always had the flexibility to code switch between Indonesian and English. So I'm always using two languages at once in even one sentence. So coming into UQ, having my first class, and majority was native English speakers, was very scary. And I was very insecure with my English. So it affected my learning a lot. I didn't want to speak in class, and I was reluctant to share my ideas and thoughts because I was too reluctant and I was too scared of fumbling on my words. I wasn't sure if I was able to articulate the messages I want to come across correctly. I didn't know if the message that I want to come across makes sense. So I decided I found myself losing confidence and also just not raising my hand in class and not wanting to speak up. But eventually, thankfully, I was able to gain back that confidence, and it was mainly because of my relationship with my classmates, my peers, and also, of course, the lecturers and tutors. So I feel like my peers has been incredibly supportive and encouraging, and just reassuring that it's okay for me to fumble on my words, and they're always encouraging me to speak up in class if I'm sharing my ideas to them. So they've been really helpful along with the tutors and lecturers. I feel like they've done a great job in terms of like creating the safe space where I feel comfortable in sharing my thoughts. And it's okay if I fumble on my words, and it's okay if I speak slowly. So yeah, that was my experience.
That's really positive to hear. Thank you for sharing that story. We're over to you now, Bob, and a bit of a switch of topics here. As an eminent sociologist, can you give us an analysis of the School of Education and what makes it tick?
I could answer by saying the Chancellor outlined what makes it tick, but I think it's that the school, since its foundation in 1945, has done research for education, research of education, so the criticality as well as trying to support the system to function better, and research of practice, but also had a huge role in the production of teachers and their ongoing professional development. And if you think back, 1945, Queensland, when it separated in 1859, there were no government secondary schools. The first were the grammar schools, the Catholic schools, All Hallows, Boys Grammar. The first state secondary schools were around the time the legislation for this university was passed, 1909. One in Wynnum, but that wasn't part of Brisbane in those times, it was a smaller town. So when the school was created in 1945, it prepared teachers, but the great expansion of secondary schooling in Queensland didn't come really until the school leaving age in Queensland was raised to 15 in 1964. And basically there was Brisbane State High School and Wynnum State High School in Brisbane and government schools plus the independent and Catholic sector. So the school significantly produced teachers for those schools, but then the big expansion of the suburban high schools. So there was a big teaching role and providing the leading teachers, I think, for secondary schools in particular. But then from the 60s and into the 70s, the research focus, and it was there from the beginning with Sir Fred Chanel, but the research focus really developed and grew. And then subsequently we had the creation of the so-called unified national system with the Dawkins reforms, and UQ sitting in a particular place within that system as part of the group of 8 with high research quality. And the school, I think, there's an international reputation and standing the university has, and the school has that as well, I think. But we always must remember that it's a small school, but one of high quality, in comparison to the other education faculties in Brisbane, QUT and Griffith, which are ginormous. So I think the school has produced leaders for the secondary schools, but also for the system. There's been close and at times very close relationships. One head of school, Alan Luke, was seconded as Deputy Director General of Education for 2 years. I was involved at that time of chairing the Curriculum Authority, and we worked very closely with the department and the Minister. But there's that international reputation, and I think following the Dawkins reforms, and particularly the push through where we are now, where governments provide less than half the funding for the universities and where international students fit into that mix. The school has been very important in my entire time. The large numbers of international students in doing higher degrees has been very significant. And I think that's a reflection in a way of the standing within the global system of universities of the school and its research output, but also, I think, appointments. I mean, I always thought when I was a very bad head of school that the most important thing that you did was appoint staff. And I think the school has appointed really very cleverly, locally, nationally, but also internationally. And the last point I would make, when I first worked in the school, 1973 to 1975, what struck me at that time was the number of academics who went from the School of Ed here at UQ to take up chairs in other universities. I mean, there was a flow out, which I think reflects the standing within the Queensland context, the national context, but internationally, I think. So it's a small, high-quality school in terms of teaching, research, and its contributions to the broader community, I think, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you, Bob. And we're over to Amy now. Amy, as a HDR nearing completion, so PhD candidate, you've been on a significant journey. What's required to develop the next generation of educational researchers? And what are we doing right, and what can we improve on?
Yeah, there's a lot of things the school is doing right, and I think it was touched on beautifully by Auntie Denise. And your wonderful acknowledgement of country made me very emotional listening to, and it made me think of the relationship I've had with you, Marnie, and the beautiful leadership I've been fortunate to be mentored by within this school. It's the school has always been welcoming, so not only just acknowledging diverse ways of knowing, being and doing, but welcoming and celebrating diverse ways of knowing, being and doing. And as a young Aboriginal scholar, becoming an early career researcher, I think that powerful role modelling and mentorship that we've had access to, and the opportunities to not just learn how to do things appropriately, but how to do it with excellence and care and relationality and accountability, that's something that the School of Education's always offered. So, and it's been done in an excellent way. So I think having those role models and mentors, excellent School of Education staff, not only through Marnie's leadership and my other supervisor, Kate McClay, and Robin Shields as well. It's culturally responsive, it's culturally safe, but it's welcoming, and I've always felt seen, I've always felt heard. So I think giving the next generation of researchers the opportunity to develop the skills they need to be not only sufficient researchers, but just excellent in what we do, and striving for excellence. I think that's something the school is really powerfully doing really well.
Thank you, Amy. I am meant to wrap up, but I'm just going to throw one in. We're talking about the future. Let's just say, this is a panel in 80 years' time for the next, 80 years. What would be your imagination and hope for what the panel would be saying the school was in 80 years' time? I know that's pretty out there considering the current climate, and 1 minute, because I just threw it in there. Oh, we do? Okay. Well, you can have more, JD.
Well, next to Bob, I'm making sure I get my phone out so I can read some notes there too. So, I thought about this one deeply, actually. Marnie, it's what Sis said about the. It's lovely to hear the flows from. I was talking to Bob about Marty Mills, who created Safe Space for my brother and I to come through and do our postgrad dip eds. And future is around, what I see around the vision around education is wellness. It doesn't matter how much apps and how much devices we've got in our worlds. I mean, later studies are showing that is the disconnection, the feeling of isolation people still get in masses, even though we've got all this technology. So for education to be even better, to be striving for the innovation, that it was lovely to hear Jim Varghese, you can't be what you can't see. When I was a Murray teacher in Logan, it was lovely seeing your face and seeing what, to be a Deputy Director Generals or be leaders of school. They're powerful, powerful messages. So wellness.
That's his brother.
Oh, sorry.
It's Peter Varghese.
Peter Varghese. Me and my brother get it often. I'm a family of 6, so take my humble apologies. But hearing you tonight, just mapping those stories about your family, that's that wellness. There's those parts that we don't. If we focus on more strongly in the curriculum sense, you're creating definitely a space for change, because in my world, there's a part about research translation back in communities, and my home community of Logan, which has high incarceration rates of young Indigenous men. It's having our men's circles, our women's circles that happen every fortnight, which are really important pieces. Again, doesn't matter how much tech and such we get, if we're not working on ways to develop and encourage wellness and really do that exceptionally, it'd be great for our grannies, Fredo, in the future to come here and feel, like you said to me about some other campuses, you feel straight away connected. You don't need to go to a small school of education. You actually know your Murrayness, your Torres Strait Islanderness is accepted up front. That would be a very powerful thing. And I'd finish with that thought around our language and our culture, which Brother Fred and Brother Mayor Simpson, shout out to you too, share on country. West of Bunyas, we say Biunga, and it'll be very powerful thing in futures where Biunga, that deep listening, that not just listening, that listening to understand and to know is just a part of what happens at UQ Education, School of Education, to that way of doing. I heard Sis talk about cultural responsiveness. To be able to do that Biunga deeply, really be a part of the rhythms of how we go about, make and build our relationships is a very important thing to tune into country.
Thank you, John.
I'm worried about getting to 80 myself, let alone thinking about 80 years' time. And I hope we're all still here, given the climate crisis, so I hope something happens in respect of that. But I suppose one of the big things is the digitalisation, datification of schooling systems and schools, and linked to that the place of AI. And I hope we get all of that right. I always think robo-debt is an example of letting the algorithms run, and I think we can't do that in the schooling system and in schools. We have to have the human relationship with those things. So I would hope that we've done that, and I suppose I would hope, John and Amy, that we have a proper settlement with the First Nations people of this country, and that their opportunities through schooling are those that others have. So a couple of things.
Thank you, Bob.
So when I thought about this question, I think one thing that came to mind was AI as well. So I feel like now, since we're living in an AI world and it will only continue to rise, I feel like it has put us in a position to kind of reevaluate what education is and the purpose of education, because I feel like from my personal experience and also my discussions with my peers, I still feel like education is quite competitive. Like, you're always trying to be the best student, trying to achieve the best grades, and ultimately I still feel defined by my grades and my GPA, and I feel like that's what causes students with the misuse of AI too, because they're just trying to get a good grade and receive a grade that is acceptable by the university, by schools, and by society. And so in the future, I hope that there is more emphasis on like collaboration and relationship building, because that is what's irreplaceable from AI. Because yeah, I can talk to AI and I can build a relationship with AI, but it's definitely different than having the human interaction. It's a lot more meaningful. And I think fostering empathy is also something that I really hope to see in the future, just that bigger emphasis on that, because that's what makes us human. And I think that's what makes human interaction genuine and meaningful, especially now. I feel like we're living in a quite polarizing world. I think empathy becomes a lot more important than ever, and I hope that the emphasis on collaboration and relationship building and empathy also allows us to coexist with AI in the future, rather than taking over education.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent points. And we'll just have a final word from Amy.
Thank you. Yeah, I've loved all of your answers to that, so it's really hard to follow. But I really hope in 80 years' time, in a panel like this, we're really celebrating that the power and value of educators is recognised. I have a daughter in year 1 at the moment, and it was not long ago that I told her we have to stay home at school from school today because we've got to support our teachers who are striking. And I was talking about the importance of what is a strike and why do we need to support teachers. I think an argument I have, and I say this with tongue-in-cheek, with my brother-in-law who's an engineer, is someone might go through their whole life without having much to do with an engineer. Every single person has an educator. Every single person goes through life and has a teacher. I hope that in 80 years' time we work it out from top down and our teachers are valued and celebrated and their worth is rewarded. I think it's, being now in higher education and teacher education, I often tell our pre-service teachers, like, you are entering one of the most difficult but the most rewarding profession. And I think that's what I hope in 80 years, that we are really rewarding and recognising the hard work of our teacher workforce, that all of you in this room today, if you're here, have been part of the hard fight for recognising the value of good educators. So that's what I hope in the next 80 years.
Thank you, Amy. So I'm sure you've really enjoyed hearing from our panel tonight, and I really encourage you to look on the link that has an expanded bio, because that was a very, very brief one that I gave you at the start. So please join me in thanking our panel for the thoughtful contribution.
Great. Thank you, esteemed panel members, and thank you, Marnie. That was a really inspiring conversation. Definitely got us all thinking, I think, right? Let's give them one more round of applause.